Hello, and welcome to the Thyroid Warrior podcast. I'm Ebony, and I'm here as your wellness facilitator. I'm going to be sharing my experiences in managing Hashimoto's disease. I really hope that it'll help you on your personal journey. Keep in mind, however, this does not substitute for medical advice. It is only for your information and motivational purposes only. Now, let's get started. Hey friends, so today's episode is very, very special and personal to me, and I cannot promise that I will not get choked up, but learning how to prevent high blood pressure or hypertension in my case is something that I strive to do each and every day, particularly since I actually had a lot of issues with a rapid heartbeat when I was younger. And for me, this hits so close to home because it runs in my family, but my father died of a heart attack and a stroke when I was 13. And it was really a combination of things as it relates to my father, but notwithstanding that, my mother also has heart disease and high blood pressure and a host of other health issues. And one of the things that she struggles with the most currently is high blood pressure. And there would be days where I remember, especially being in middle school and coming home and being afraid that I would find my mother dead because she may or may not have had a heart attack. And it is not something that was easy for me to live with. It is not something that I take lightly, and it actually makes me very sad when I think about it because my mother also smokes. And even though she knows that I can help her, it's not something that she's necessarily ready to work through at the moment. I can't say if she will change, but she's definitely at that pre-contemplation stage in which she's thinking about it, but not really. So there's really not much that I can do. The only thing I can honestly do is just pray for her and know that whenever she's ready, I will be here with open arms. And knowing that my grandmother died of a stroke and that on my father's side, my grandmother and grandfather both had issues with heart disease as well. So PSA, if you are struggling with high blood pressure and or hypertension, know that you do have options in addition to your medication. But I just want to give you a hug because I know that that is something that is very scary to live with, and I do not take that lightly at all. And if you are someone that is currently having issues with trying to figure out this whole hypertension, high blood pressure, kind of on the edge, but not really, but you're not really sure what to do, my heart also goes out for you because I was in that stage at one point in my life. So I want to talk about a couple of things. The first thing that I want to talk about is, what is blood pressure? So we know of our blood pressure as being two numbers. So typically we hear that normal is 120/80, and that first number, or the systolic number, is going to represent the pressure in your arteries as your blood goes from the heart. So it's going away from the heart. It has oxygen-rich blood, and it is going to go to every part of your body, come all the way down to your feet, come back up, and it's going to have that less oxygenated blood and then start the process of filtering. But That bottom number, or the diastolic number, that is the pressure in your arteries when your heart rests between beats. So we know that according to the American Heart Association, that normal is considered 120/80, and anything above 140/90 is considered hypertension. So if you have a value that's between 120/80 and then 140/90, that is also considered pre-hypertension. So when you have high blood pressure, it puts a strain on your heart. And again, it also damages those very, very sensitive blood vessels that you have in your arteries. And sometimes they can balloon or become misshapen. Sometimes they can rupture. And it's very sad to me because we have almost 78 million people, or 1 out of 3 Americans, that are currently living with high blood pressure. And that is definitely something that is it's something that I personally have a mission to help people live a happy, healthy, and joy-filled life. And I have often said that I want that cycle to end with me, and particularly in my family. And when I think about this, it's very interesting because I started to exercise and really watch my diet and my thoughts as well, honestly. And that's another reason why I really and truly advocate for therapy, because it's nothing worse than holding all those thoughts, the anxiety, the depression, and everything else that's going on in your life inside. So I definitely want to encourage you to find a therapist, find a support group, find someone that you can be vulnerable and open with so that you can actually get your thoughts out of your head. Journal if you need to as well, because it's nothing worse than feeling like you're alone, especially when you're unsure about all of the various things that go into having high blood pressure. Now, one of the things that you'll also hear is you shouldn't have a lot of salt. And one of the things that I definitely have struggled with my mom in particular, is helping her to see that, no, you really shouldn't have a lot of, really it's sodium, but understanding that sodium is a vital component that we need. But the other thing that you have to consider is that salt is actually made of about 40% sodium and 60% chloride. And one of the biggest things that we often forget is that amount of sodium that we actually need, we can get from a lot of the vegetables in our diet, in all honesty. The problem comes when you actually take in too much salt. It actually causes you to retain water. And then the way that your body responds to that is, it's like, wait a minute, I'm getting too much water. Let me raise the blood pressure of my body so that I can get rid of that extra water retention and salt. So it can become or create a very vicious cycle. And I don't know about you, but there are times now that I've actually stopped eating a lot of salty and sweet foods, when I have that item again, especially something that's really salty, I get a headache right away. I've become very, very sensitive to higher sodium things. And I'll be honest, I ate at Chick-fil-A the other day, and I think I had the sriracha something. And I couldn't finish eating it because the sodium in that sauce made me feel sick to my stomach, and my head started to hurt. And it very, very quickly made me realize if the recommended amount for us to get in terms of sodium is 1,500 milligrams, or about 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, we probably take in way more than that. And part of what is considered about an average is 3,500 milligrams. So what's crazy is now that I don't consume as much sodium, when I experience it again, it's always like, whoo, that was a lot. And the crazy thing too is, okay guys, don't tell my mom this. So when my mom cooks, she is very, very heavy on the salt shaker. And a lot of other common seasonings that she uses also has salt in it. And your taste buds aren't able to really and truly taste the food that you have when you're constantly dousing it with salt or hot sauce or all of the other things that we like to flavor our food with. I know everyone knows someone that either puts ketchup on everything, hot sauce on everything, ranch dressing on everything. Sometimes I know someone that puts sour cream on a lot of things, or heavily salts things, and you really and truly can't taste your food. And even if you started the process of slowly minimizing the amount of salt that you put in your food, your taste buds will change, and you'll notice over a few weeks that you actually begin to taste your food, which I went through. And it was crazy to me because, remember, when I lived in New York, I was not very diligent about what I ate at all. And when my GI doctor told me that I had to make some dietary changes or else I would be looking at an endoscopy to figure out what was going on, that was a no-brainer for me, because I have a very strong gag reflex. I don't even really like getting my teeth cleaned in the back. It just is, ugh. Yeah. So the thought of someone putting a scope down my throat was just not happening. It wasn't happening. So I decided at that point that I needed to figure this out, because there was no way that I was having a tube go down my throat or up the other way, because I continued to make poor choices. So how do you actually step away from the salt shaker? And a couple of things that I have done in the past that definitely helped me with this is I actually took away the salt shaker from my table. So I didn't have a salt shaker, and then I stopped adding salt to my food while I was cooking it, and instead at the very end I would add salt. So one of the other things that I also noticed is when I was cooking was if I put a lot of salt in my food while I was cooking, after a while, once the seasoning settles in your food, my food was very, very salty, and I just didn't like it. And I also got tired of wasting food, so it was another reason for me to add salt at the end. And lastly, we know that a lot of the processed foods and the junk food that we eat has a high level of sodium in it. So when you start the process of reducing the amount of processed foods that you consume, naturally your salt intake will go down. So the next question that you may be wondering, well, if I have hypertension or high blood pressure, or I'm at risk for it, what can I eat to reduce that or prevent it? And definitely whole grains. I have also read about hibiscus tea, which I actually just purchased some more. I love that tea. It's wonderful, especially in the summertime. But I also have oatmeal in the morning, and I definitely add a lot of flaxseed to that. And beets are definitely another really, really good vegetable to consume to help reduce high blood pressure. And it actually has a similar effect to what nitroglycerin would have. And my mom used to take that whenever she'd experience angina or chest pain due to her high blood pressure. And basically what happens is nitric oxide, which is the active ingredient in that medication, when your muscle fibers basically say, hey, something's going on here, I need you to kind of help me out, open some things up, it's going to allow those arteries to relax so that you can get more blood flow. You want to make sure that you're supporting the production of nitric oxide, because the enzyme that creates nitric oxide, it's a synthase, and anytime it's out of whack, it's going to create more free radicals. Again, we talked about these little scavengers that come out and just wreak havoc on your body. But it's really important to make sure that you consume antioxidant-rich foods to protect the enzymes that create your nitric oxide. And remember, when you consume the foods that have nitrates in them, the nitrates get converted into nitric oxide, which is what opens up our arteries to allow more blood flow. Foods that are very, very high in those nitrates, you'll have your arugula, rhubarb, cilantro, your butterleaf lettuce, your mesclun greens, which I love. So go ahead and have that really big salad with a nice dressing. Basil, beet greens, and Swiss chard and beets. All of those are very, very good and high in nitrates. Those were just some of the things that I wanted to share with you all today as it relates to just what hypertension is, blood pressure, and all those things. And definitely let me know if you have any questions. And please don't forget to vote about the podcast live event that I will be hosting. I'm just trying to figure out where you guys want me to have it, whether it's on the East or the West Coast. So you can do that by voting at joyfulebony.com/live event. And I cannot wait to hear from you. So be happy, be whole, and be well. Take care. Okay, thyroid warriors, get out there and take things one step at a time. Remember, be great, reflect on your triumphs, and as always, be well. Take care.